would like to get your opinion on something because I have this inkling that the major tech companies, specifically, I'm going to focus on OpenAI, but I think Meta a little bit too. They kind of have their fingers in like maybe too many pots right now. They have a lot going on and I don't understand where their focus is. So I thought maybe we could unpack it together.
I would definitely want to unpack it because I definitely need more detail, Kate.
All right. Well, I don't have an article. I just have listed all of the kind of announcements that OpenAI has made recently and kind of organized them so we can talk about the many, many things that this company is doing.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, agents. So they have Agent Kit, which is tools for developers to build agents, and they also have GPT apps, which is like an app store where consumers can have agents take actions on their behalf. Media and social media. They have the Sora 2 app, which makes video. We talk about that all the time here.
Beautiful Slop, the best app in the world. Recommended.
And then they also built a social media platform for all that slop to live on called the Sora app.
Oh, that's the one I like.
Okay. They're also doing coding and coding assistance, which they're, coming up on Anthropic. Anthropic's big focus is coding right now, but OpenAI, not to be outdone. They have Codex, which is their internal coding software. And they also acquired Windsurf, which is a coding and development platform. Okay. Also a browser, which is a competitor to Google Chrome.
All right, I'm listening.
Okay, also hardware and infrastructure. They have Stargate, which is their multi-billion-dollar project to build one of the largest data centers of all time. And they're also trying to grow their compute by owning their own chips. And then recently, in the last couple of weeks, they announced they're lifting the policies on adult chatbots and opening up the smut market.
So clearly AGI is getting closer and closer every day. Is that the takeaway?
Well, I don't know. Are each of these things like a piece of the puzzle that needs to be in place for AGI to happen? Or are they like looking for money in 1,000 places at once?
Always the softballs with Kate. That's a great question. And again, as a disclaimer, they're all billionaires. I'm not. So what do I know, right? But having said that, I remember Steve Jobs. He said that he took pride not on the things he built, but the ones and the projects he passed on, which is something I try to remind myself when I get too excited about doing 10 things at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, it does seem to me, without getting too scientific on the definition, that OpenAI is just throwing at the wall and seeing what sticks.
This is one way of how it looks.
It does look like that, but also it's like maybe there's something I'm missing out on. Investors seeing value on all these diversifying offerings.
Right. Let's go back to the initial premise, which is not that like we have taken on all this capital, so now we need to prove value, right? And we need to like figure out the way to do that. I mean, to me, that leads me down the rabbit hole of like, well, that's why they're turning on adult chatbots, because isn't adult entertainment like a quarter of all internet searches, period? Like adult entertainment powers the internet. So it makes sense that they're going to look for profits over there, right? Which are the quick wins and which are like the big plays? I don't know. It's just sort of all over the place.
Okay, but I feel like, probably at least half of the traffic. And if you're watching on YouTube, we'll definitely have a video that shows the actual number. But I'm assuming a lot of traffic on the internet is dedicated to adult entertainment for mom and dad to have fun at night. But having said that, with all this investment, right? For example, I recently saw on the news, they were like buying half the Patagonia to do data centers there as part of Star Trek, Stargate, Star Wars. But is adult entertainment really gonna be able to sort of give return of the investment to like 5 times the Manhattan Project yearly investment?
No, and no one thing could, right? And so maybe it does make sense that they have to follow the money down multiple channels because no one channel will make up the difference of all the capital investment they've taken on.
All right. So what I'm getting in here is that big companies, they're all looking at each other and like whenever the bar gets lower, which usually happens on X, everybody follows along because that's where we are now. One thing And I'm just trying to think, how do I say this without sounding conspiratorial, which I definitely do not want to. But usually what I think is like, what could bring this amount of money to get a return on the investment? And all the signs, as someone that started his career creating videos, so please keep that in mind, are pointing towards government contracts as the only way to make that money back.
Oof. Say more about that. Like, what government contracts could they take on?
I'm
Defense?
not entirely familiar, but I would say defense. It's a big one. I would say homeland security. It's another one, right? Where I'm like, well, wouldn't it be helpful if I had a lot of material on certain people that could be a roadblock for whatever I'm trying to accomplish? Wouldn't that be a helpful thing to know their deepest desires?
Yeah.
And all of that. So to me, again, and I want to say, I'm not sure this is what it is.
Yeah.
But it sounds logic.
It really makes sense, though, when you think about it as a counterpoint to Meta and the direction or the directionlessness of Meta right now. Because, Meta has been the social media platform. OpenAI is taking a chunk of that. Meta has been the open source version of the technology. So I don't know if everyone knows the difference between open source and closed AI models.
Let's share with the class.
So closed AI models, they don't reveal their weights. So basically how they're built, how they work. Open source, you can just download the whole thing and run it off of your local machine. They just share it, right? And Meta has been committed to open source from the very beginning until very recently.
Oh, why?
They did not say why, but Mark Zuckerberg recently sort of backed away from the open sourcedness of their AI technology. And to me, it probably is because of competitiveness. Because if everyone has access to the thing that you spent billions and billions of dollars making, where do you prove value in a competitive space?
Mm-hmm. But I could sort of have a theory, right? And I think in the beginning, it sort of felt like OpenAI was sort of a Walmart of all things technology, right? But now you're mentioning Meta, and I want your thoughts on this because I have no clue, honestly. It's like, let's say OpenAI and Meta are just like burning cash to see who wins. I ultimately feel like Meta would prevail with this Walmart strategy and they would be able to outspend OpenAI. So even if they have no focus, I do see them coming on top no matter how many times they get it wrong.
Yeah, it's interesting because Meta is now at this point like kind of a legacy player in the space the way that Google is, whereas OpenAI is a fairly newcomer. And Meta has to reshape themselves every time they want to move, whereas OpenAI can be more flexible, nimble, and can kind of grow in whatever shape they want to. But it's interesting to me because if you really think about it, like Meta is an advertising company. Mm-hmm. They monetize our data and, advertising is their business. OpenAI doesn't have an advertising strategy. So they have to figure out a new model for how this works. And Meta has cobbled AI onto what it already did to make money. And because they have those deep pockets, they've been able to, I think we were talking about this in a prior episode, like hire data scientists away from other labs for just making it rain on them and their children and their children's children.
And we'd be so happy to get some of that beautiful, disruptive rain.
Make it rain up in here. But they also, they're an incumbent, so they can't move as freely. But that said, OpenAI seems to have the freedom to move, but they seem to be moving everywhere all at once.
So Meta knows advertising better. They probably have more cash in hand to blow it up.
Yep.
And honestly, because also you can say, well, what about Metaverse and all the other things that didn't work for them? Yeah, but also they got WhatsApp, they got Instagram,
Trial
they
and
got Facebook.
Error, right? You have to have a certain amount of fails in order to win.
Do you see anyone figuring it out?
I love what Anthropic is doing because they have sort of they've done two things. They have built themselves a niche in business and they've built themselves a niche in coding. And they've really focused on enabling their products for both of those spaces. And that allows them to remain focused and continue to build on the core of their values, which I'm not sure is happening in either of the other cases.
Okay, so you're saying ultimately a slow and steady wins the race? Is that your takeaway?
I have no idea what wins the race. If I did, I would be a billionaire.
That's right. And I'll be the friend that is there all the time to benefit from it. But you know what? As much as we believe these tech people are disruptors and here to enlighten us and take us straight to progress, there's a lot of people that are not believing AI is here to democratize everything and make our lives better. Can you believe it, Kate?
You're kidding.
I know. But there's an AI resistance, and that's a topic I want to bring to discuss with you today.
All right, let's hear it.
And this comes straight from Axios. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Axios. And I love Axios, but I'm terrified. Like if one day an Axios reporter is interviewing me, I'm going to be shaking in my boots because they're so tough.
I'm going to get a selfie, and I don't care because nothing matters anymore. But here's one thing, the main points this article is covering about this AI resistance is something that I've been noticing out there in the streets when I talk to other creatives and professionals, which is there's a growing resistance that includes college students, creatives, coders, which is one that is surprising.
Yeah.
And basically they're avoiding using AI in their day-to-day. One of the things, for example, students of this 2026 class that was interviewed for this article, one of the main things they were saying is it's important I do this myself. Programmers, they have two main reasons. Number one, tools have obvious technical limitations and can produce code that is full of mistakes, as we've seen with vibe coding and what's happened with a bunch of vibe coding apps that then sensitive information gets leaked, people get doxxed, and you know how it goes. And also coders, and this is sort of, I'm assuming, something that probably is all across the board, they are like, we don't want to be obsolete. Two more things.
Okay, I'm listening.
The main points of concern. That's the other one, which is carbon consumption, the impact on society, the pride in human-made work, and a distrust. But here's the interesting part and what I want to discuss with you, which is many of these people resisting AI are not necessarily teaching it entirely. Because what we're saying is that 40% are users. And I do have a theory on that. But 40% of US workers say they have used AI at work a few times a year. So my first question for you is, what's your take on this AI resistance?
It doesn't surprise me because anytime there is a new anything, we resist. It's part of human nature to fear the unknown. It's just baked into our DNA. We get that fight or flight response, and you have to rationalize your way out of that. But that's not to discount what this class of 2026 in this survey is talking about. And I think that I agree with you in that there's bright spots in that piece of research, specifically that people want to learn how to do it themselves. And to me, that means that they're aware of the risk of reliance on technology and that they don't want to find themselves in that predicament. And you have to think about like Picasso, right? He had to learn how to draw a perfect still life in the classical style before he could kind of work with the medium to find a completely new style. And you couldn't necessarily be a cubist if you'd never learned how to draw a face, right? And so it makes perfect sense. In fact, I think that that is exactly the perspective that everyone should have about this technology. So bravo. I mean, honestly.
No, I mean, I was not expecting that takeaway, so it's surprising. And I do agree with you, Kate. I think the best approach whenever we talk about AIs is learning the fundamentals of your trade. I actually, back when I was interviewing other folks, even with folks we mostly disagree on everything, I think that's been consistent, except when the AI influencers that are like, don't pay attention to them.
Right.
But most folks, even those that are very ingrained in the ecosystem of AI apps, are like, you still got to learn the fundamentals because sure, everybody has access to this tool, but it's all going to be Slop,
Yeah.
So,
well, and then also about the coders, right?
Yeah.
Because that's another interesting conundrum. You can vibe code something today, but when it breaks, nobody's there to fix it. When you need to debug your code, you don't have the background to do that. And if you don't have the fundamentals and if you don't have experience, you are going to waste more time than is necessary or even favorable for doing that task.
Yeah, I'm thinking, let's say, kids at school, that if we just implemented vibe coding as, hey, kids, you'll build your own app, how long until sensitive information of kids under 12 leaks into 4chan and we get a bunch of groomers all over it, right? So there are very real consequences. I actually have a question for you, right? We talk about learning fundamentals, but also we say progress cannot be stopped, the cat is out of the bag, money talks. So do you see a future in which this pride in human work turns into sort of like going to Whole Foods in the early 2000s, like, you know, the new fair trade, human made, something.
100% that there will be a premium on content with human origins and human hands, right? All of that is definitely true. But I also think that, you know, the slop pile might get thinner because it will not be human and slop. There will be hybridized approaches. And if you think about it, any new technology finds its niche in the world, right? So if you my favorite example is Betamax. Remember these old giant tapes that we used to watch things on?
I actually got to work as an intern on public TV in Argentina, and they still had Betamax, and I was obsessed.
Yeah, Betamax is great, and it actually is still in use today as a content storage unit. So, you know, it finds its niche, right? Or if you think about another good example is VHS, which we all thought was going to upend the world, now has been replaced by something else that does the same thing but does it digitally. So, you know, everything is constantly in motion, but things nestle their way into a place. And I feel that, you know, the ability to augment human ideas or augment human production with AI will find like a hybridized place to live, and it'll all be good. Maybe I'm being really positive today. I don't know what's wrong with me.
I like it that you're positive. Someone has to be positive now, Kate. Keeping in mind, you always have these thoughtful questions for me. I have one for you, which is, sure, hybrids, augment, not eliminate. Life is beautiful with some holding our hand. Now,
Oh, Lord.
Where's your line in the sand when it comes to using AI?
In terms of the professional side of things, the creative
Professional,
side of things,
human, surprise me.
if you've lost the thread on what your original intention was, you know, what your original prompt was, the reason why you opened that little window and started typing into it or speaking into that little microphone icon. If you've lost the thread, you've gone too far. And I think that, you know, everyone sort of defaults to this, like, I have to write an email or I need to output a document, and then you go in and then you type it and then the document comes out, right? But when you get into more sophisticated use of the technology, they're actually pulling multiple pieces together. So I remember speaking to somebody who worked at a product design lab. And they started out, okay, well, let's use AI to help us with our product design for our new product. So they typed in, okay, it's a bottle of product that has these features, and AI, of course, got it totally wrong because it doesn't know anything about product design, right? It doesn't, you can't translate creative brief into AI output in a way that makes sense. So what instead they did was to take a granular approach and break down the product design process into something that worked with the technology. So show me a palette of different indigo colors. Show me some plastic molding textures. Show me some, you know, backdrop designs for the product placement, right? And so I think it really is going to be up to us to creatively like unpack what our own personal workflows are going to be in this new era. And maybe it's more complex than just putting something in and getting an output out.
I love that answer, but I need something spicier for the shorts. So, Kate, let's say I give you a friend's discount and you hire me. What's the use of AI that would get me fired?
You put sensitive company information into ChatGPT?
Not in reality, but is this any scenario that would get me fired?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other?
You went to Bermuda and you just left all of your agents to do your job for you without any oversight. Just effed off to the beach.
That's a CEO on a mastermind in Cancun, but not me, Kate. So you can be rest assured that I'll give you a good quote and excellent service.
Let's say you took you didn't read through the information. You sent all the wrong information to the client.
I've seen it happen before, yeah. And I feel that's my line in the sand as well. Like the three you basically, I mean, I have a few others, story for another time, but definitely I think information, like confidential information, something that I see a lot with folks that are not as much on this AI information bubble. They are just running through ChatGPT or discussing sensitive things, which is something we have previously discussed in this episode and others. So yeah, I see definitely as the biggest dangers, right? Especially with the agents now.
Yeah.
And all the hype. Is there any use that it's not creating images or basically coming up with a first draft that you actually say that's a smart use of AI that does not get talked about?
I think one of the things that is coming is people really using it as a strategic thought partner as opposed to a content output machine. So for example, one of the things that I do is when I've finished a client deliverable, I create a copy of my client and I give that entity personality traits and I give them a couple of bullet points about the things that they usually pick apart when they get the client deliverable, and then I have them read the client deliverable and give me all of the gaps so that I can then pre-plan for all the questions that I'm going to get. It's a way of making myself better and actually saving time on different revisions as I get to final product. Something like that, I think, is being able to work with different role-playing scenarios, being able to build agents that aren't doing a task on your behalf, but becoming an expert in your mixture of experts that you have around you to do your job better. That to me is where we ought to be heading and ought to be going. And I think, just going back to like the dismay that this report showed amongst people where they really are not looking forward to this future, right? Because they're getting like work slop and they're getting all of this poor outputs. If we fast forward and everybody sort of does the due diligence of learning how to work with this technology in the right way, it's going to put a smile on everybody's face because it's helped solve the problems before the problems happen.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad you're mentioning smiles because I think it's time to our favorite part, which is what brings a smile to society, and that's AI Slop.
Yes!
And I brought something for you. We say you can't resist progress, and there's another thing people can't resist, which is babies and puppies.
Yes!
So
oh
today,
my gosh, this is what I needed today.
Yeah, today we're going to have actually, not puppies, but kittens. So that's a Slop of the
Okay, well,
day.
it's from you.
So they were actually puppies. Kate, do you have it on your phone? I just sent it to you.
Okay, I got it.
Let's hit play.
Oh, this better not turn into something horrible.
No, it does not. Actually, this is just wholesome. I wanted, I've been watching the most horrible things with Slop, so I decided to give myself a break and look for cute things.
I mean, there's nothing that fills my soul more than an adorable baby and little puppies, so I thank you for that. It looks a lot like, one of two of my maternity leaves, and I miss those times a little bit.
I think this video looks like every boomer's Facebook dream. But my question to you is, on the scale to 1 to 10 rainforests, how many would you burn for this video?
I don't know. It was very cute and it brought a smile to my face, but it's not very original. It just is sort of like a regurgitation of a baby on a carpet with some puppies, like cute factor 10, originality factor 2. So I guess it just depends on like what you want to sacrifice that rainforest for. Do you want to push creative forward? Do you want to have a point of view and a voice, or do you just want to make people happy? I think if it's creating value for somebody, then it's maybe worth the $5 that we took from OpenAI to create it.
As long as Sam is paying for them and not me, I'm all for it. So Kate, final words, thumbs up or thumbs down to this one?
Thumbs up, because I like when something puts a smile on my face.
We like babies and puppies. And speaking of liking, please like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment, because that's how the algorithm works. Kate, it's been a pleasure as usual. We're done.
We're done. Oh, can you tag puppies and babies in the video so that we get extra traffic? Everybody loves puppies and babies. It's
but that
marketing.
People will not return, so no.
Okay, fine.
Bye.